Luba, should we get started?
Go for it, Matej.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I hope everybody is doing wonderful this evening. I thank you guys very much for being here. Very first thing that I would love to do is introduce myself and those that are will be hosting this alongside me. Not just to say who they are, but also to provide a big thank you for their assistance. So firstly, my name is Matej SIlecky. I am the director and co-producer of Babee Skazala. You will see that there's also a Julie Parker. She is my producer. And for those of you that might not know, she's also my mother. So tell me how that worked. I don't know, but somehow we made it work. And then I'd also like to introduce, so some of you may all know her already, but Luba Levitsky.
They don't know me.
Okay. They don't know you, but she has been wonderful, and she will also be participating in co-hosting alongside us for this Q&A. And with that, before I actually pass it off to Luba, I do want to just give a quick little rundown on Zoom here. I know that many of us have used Zoom recently because of our pandemic situation, but I just wanted to do a little quick rundown. We will be recording this, so if anybody is uncomfortable with that or being seen in the recording, if you go down to the bottom left, you can stop video if you feel the need to do that. You can still participate, you can still listen, but your video will not be seen. That is an option for you. But if you also look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll notice that there is a button towards the bottom right that says reactions. You can go ahead and click on that, and you'll have the option to either raise your hand or give a round of applause. I just wanted to let you know that those are there because I might ask for people to raise their hands if they do have any questions. The other thing that you can do is you should see a little chat bubble, little text bubble there that says chat underneath it. We will be using the chat, so feel free to type any questions that you might have in there, and we will also be using that alongside with our raise of hands to get questions as we move through the Q&A.
I will turn the lights in here.
The most important thing is to remember that use the chat if anything, and we'll make sure that we address any sort of technical issues that there might be along the way and any questions that might arise. So hopefully that is sufficient, and I will pass it off to Luba here.
Okay.
Luba, take it away.
Thank you, Matej. Good evening, всем добрый вечер.
Dobry вечер.
Welcome to our virtual movie screening and fundraiser chat with award-winning filmmaker and director Matej SIlecky. Дорогі гості, сердечно вас вітаю і дякую, що завітали до нас на коротку зустріч з кінематографом-директором Matej SIlecky. My name is Luba Levitsky. For those who do not know me, I will serve as the moderator this evening. We've scheduled 1 hour for our evening session, but can certainly extend the time if we haven't covered your questions or if you wish to expand on any previous information. Please limit yourself to one question at a time, thereby allowing others to participate in the chat, and then come back with additional questions, and we appreciate you respecting that. The film Babee Skazala brings us one step closer to understanding and learning about the history of our parents and ancestors who fled Ukraine during the war, who then lived and grew as communities in the DP camps in Europe and eventually emigrated to free countries to begin their new and productive lives in safe places. In a minute, we'll turn our session back to director Matej, who has made an incredibly huge contribution to tell the Ukrainian story, fully understanding that our story, often unspoken, unknown, must not be left untold. Just a quick update on our Minnesota Holodomor documentary project, for which this video is a first fundraiser, and the impact of Holodomor on the Minnesota Ukrainian community, which is a rarely told nor well understood aspect of our Ukrainian diaspora history. This project is led by Zina Politz-Gutmanis and is projected to preview in 2022. Phase 1 of our project included capturing oral histories of Holodomor survivors, for which we have received acclaim from influential people, top Holodomor scholars. A significant effort and resource was expended in Phase 1, and we are grateful to our partner in Phase 1, the Ukrainian American Community Senate team. Phase 2 begins with this fundraiser, the screening of this film, and is brought to you by St. Michael's and St. George's Ukrainian Orthodox, St. Constantine Ukrainian Catholic, and St. Catherine Ukrainian Orthodox churches. Our churches provided a haven to Holodomor survivors after World War II. So what better partners in our next phase? As we identify areas of focus and need, we will invite the Ukrainian Center, other organizations and individuals to join in our next collaborative efforts to tell our story. So please stay tuned for more information in this regard. And now let me move on to our special guest of the evening. The film, Babee Skazala, screened at international festivals, gathered many awards, including nomination for Best Documentary at the New York City Festival 2019, the Ethnographic Film Festival, Paris, the UK Swindon Independent Film Festival, honorable mention at the 37th New Jersey International Festival, and last September, a finalist at Ukraine's Brukivka International Film Festival at the ancient historic city of Kamyanets-Podilsky. We are delighted to welcome guest speaker, director Matej. So Matej, if I can start our session with a question about what motivated you to walk down this path to make this film. Welcome, Matej. Вітаємо пана Матею і прошу.
Well, дуже дякую. Thank you very much for that extremely kind and generous introduction. And yes, I'll get right to answering your question right away. What brought me forth on this adventure? I must start the story actually as a little child and simply say that I really don't know, and I didn't know because as a young child, my grandmother used to tell me stories. My babcia used to tell me stories of what it was like to be in the DP camps and what her experience was fleeing from home. And I will tell you the truth, as a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, I mean, even until I was about 10 or so, I never understood what she was saying. And that's that. As I said, that's the truth. I recollect many of these stories, but they never really solidified as to what she was speaking to. The times had changed so much, and where I was growing up was so different than what she was describing to me, what the accessibility to things were. And that really brought me to, I'm going to take a big jump here in my history to when I went to UC Berkeley for college. My first semester at UC Berkeley, my grandfather on my mother's side had passed away. He saw me off to college and said that was, his dying wish, if you will. And, rest his soul. He was also a World War II veteran. And that started to make me think of all the stories that he had once told me as well. Although he never experienced World War II in the same way that my babcia did, there started to be a connection made between the two of them and just the general history that they had both experienced in two very different contexts. Throughout my college career, as I like to say, I encountered a few discomforting events that were very centered around me actually being Ukrainian. One of them in particular was I'm sure most of us know that there aren't really many schools that provide a Ukrainian class or a Ukrainian language class. Most of them only have a Soviet or a Russian sort of department. And so what I actually ended up doing in university is I studied Russian language and Russian studies while I was at UC Berkeley. I admit to forgetting a little bit of my Ukrainian along the way, and this helped me actually bring back a bit of that.
Yeah, I'm listening to that.
But in one of the classes I took, it was an Imperial Soviet history class. It was taught by a German professor, and on my final paper, I used a really well-known scholar, SIlecky, which many of you might know, and she wouldn't accept him. And I asked why. I could not understand. Like, extremely well regarded through Oxford, Yale, all these really large universities. It was because he was Ukrainian. And that made me go ballistic in my head. I could not comprehend what was just told to me, to my face. Because he's Ukrainian, are you really kidding me? And that's when it all finally clicked. After being in that class and learning about the history of the Soviet Union, understanding it from what my babcia had always told me, and then being told that it's because I was Ukrainian that he was Ukrainian and that I was Ukrainian, that I was not going to get a good grade in that class, and that should be well known and inevitable, that I just said, no, absolutely not. And I started to really think about this. How do I share the history that I've been told throughout my younger years in a way that is really fairly representative of the Ukrainian people? And I thought about, what if it was like a bibliography? What if I asked babcia and I wrote everything down? What if I took pictures? What if I did this? What if I ended up doing just an oral interview? And none of them seemed to come to none of them seemed to hit all of the points that needed to be hit to really connect with the fact that this is our history, and these are the words of my babcia, not just my babcia, but my friend's babcia, my family's babcia, nashi babci, right? And that's what made me realize that I needed to do a film. And that was the moment I'd said, we have to go down this path of doing this film and investing in the cameras and going forth and taking this journey. And I can't actually tell you how convoluted and complex this whole journey was. I mean, to begin with, I did not realize what I got myself into. But the only thing I would absolutely say is I have to admit that, I mean, especially with my mother here, Julie, and my producer as well, I'm so proud of the fact that we actually persevered and went through this with all the hardships that came along the way. It was definitely a journey, and one that I hold very near and dear to my heart. It was very, very special to have interviewed 36 plus unique individuals across the United States, and to hear all of their stories, to hear everything that they faced, and to be able to connect with each and every one of their families. I had the opportunity to speak with so many people, and to have their children come to me afterwards and say, "Znaisho, I've never heard the story before. I have been with my papa, my tato, my mama for, nashi jido, babcia for all of my life. I mean, and they've never told me this story. And you come into my house, you come through my door, and they tell you everything. They pour their heart into what they're telling you, and yet I'm their bloodline, and I've never heard this before. And that's something that it touches me, not just because they were so willing to share that with me, but because it was a way of me sharing in their family history. And that's what really brought it all together, with that this isn't just a documentary about, it's not just a documentary about history and Ukrainian people. this is a documentary about Nashi Ljudi, right? Our people, you know, what it means to be Ukrainian, but also what it meant to be more than Ukrainian, what it meant to be in that time period, what it meant to share, and really the essence in the case of what Babee Skazala means for this movie, being able to share those moments in every facet of the sense, every meaning of the word. And yeah, I'm open to answering any questions that anybody might have in regard to all of what I just said. But that's really the premise of where I started. Really some rough times with being labeled as Ukrainian, and realizing after 20 some years that, oh wow, my babcia actually told me some really relevant things. And I'm really glad that I finally took a history course to understand that. And I, you know, it's my personality to an extent. I had to stick it to this German professor. I mean, no one liked her anyway, so we had to kind of go down that road. But yeah.
That's a great segue into how this all came about. Anyone want to like chime in on the follow-up here?
Like I said in the beginning here, you can feel free to raise your hand. You might be muted. I think if you are, bottom left of the screen, there's a little microphone there that you can click to unmute yourself. If you are struggling to do that, though, we can do it from our side. You can either raise the hand in the reactions or send a chat.
Hand. Here we go.
Zina. Yeah, Zina.
I have a question. You know, Matej, the people that you interviewed in the film, they really have such interesting stories. And I know you traveled across the country to do these interviews. And I'm just wondering, how did you identify the people that you interviewed, and how did you choose them for your film?
Great question. Fantastic question. So in the very beginning, I'm sure that you guys can understand my first connection and really only connection was my babcia. She was the one person that I knew the stories. I knew that she knew people. And so the very, very first location I traveled to was Florida. She actually connected me with the community down there. And I started doing a bunch of my first interviews in Florida, in Palm Springs, or the Palm Springs area? Not Palm Springs. You're muted, Julian, just so you know.
Yeah,
okay.
No. You're mixing up California.
I am mixing. Yeah, I was going to say.
We did both.
I know there's a Palm Springs in Florida as well, right?
Palm Beach.
Palm Beach. Yeah, so I did my first set of interviews down there, and actually that branched us into Pennsylvania, so very near to New Jersey here. And then from Pennsylvania, it was one of those, we did a couple of interviews in Pennsylvania. They knew a few people out in, you know, in Colorado, maybe in California. And so through really meeting one individual, we got so connected with another community and in another part of the United States. And then the web just started connecting here to there into another location, to one community and another community. And it was really beautiful, actually, to, I'll give you a sense. I did go from Northern California, from UC Berkeley. It went down to UCLA. From UCLA, went to Colorado, to Denver, Colorado. From there to Ohio. It was really beautiful to actually be in all these different communities, one after another, and connect the communities up so seamlessly, really. To be able to say so-and-so, you know, says hello and says like they miss you, and then for that message to go back and then connect forth. And it was really an enriching cultural experience to be able to do that. But yes, to answer your question, Zina, it really was just one individual knowing another individual, and, you know, being that whole Babee Skazala, you know, community aspect. So
I think that an amazing point there, which you depicted so strongly in your film, is the fact that all of our families, our ancestors in the DP camps became this extended community. And as they rebuilt their ethnicity and their community in Germany, because they were denied that privilege and the opportunity to do that in Ukraine as the Nazis and the Bolsheviks wiped us out. They created such a strong environment. And then to transfer that and to continue what you just referred in terms of staying connected. I mean, I like to say that I was too young to be in the DP camps, but just barely. But my dear friends say, I know somebody from this city, from Augsburg, from Regensburg, and they still are connected. And so to that point, it's an amazing community that still exists. And as they said in your film, they're like brothers and sisters. It's not just that I know you because we were in Tabir together. So it's an amazing experience that as I listened to it, I felt warm because they were connected beyond, often because they had lost family members and they created new family members or met new people. So it was a really poignant part of your film. So it was really strong.
Dziękuję. Yes, and actually, just to go off that point, and it's a little bit of a slightly different situation, but one of the very first screenings that we ended up doing at Rutgers University, where Professor Motil actually does some teaching out of, I had an individual come up to me after the screening, and I apologize, the wind's getting a bit strong outside. But he came up to me and he said, you know, here's the thing. I'm not Ukrainian, okay? I teach Italian classes in my middle school. I love my kids. I'm kind of Italian, but the other side of me is actually Polish, okay? My parents were there. You want to know something funny? I now understand everything that they were talking about back then. And I can't wait to go tell my kids in my Italian class what it means to be Polish now. And I was like, wait a second. Now this is really special and unique because he just brought he's from a different side of this whole entire thing. He actually connected these dots. And it was so beautiful to see, even from a different perspective, from a different nationality, a different background, that interconnectivity that you were just speaking to that happened within the DP camps. Yes, sometimes the communities were somewhat segregated from each other. They kind of kept to themselves on certain occasions, but with jamborees, with the traveling that did happen between, certain camps, there was so much cross-cultural connection that really brought about such a beauty. And I feel like that also just segues into, having the opportunity to come to the United States and being in this, as it's said by one of the individuals, in this, not necessarily a melting pot per se, but really this field of flowers, with everybody having such a brightness and contributing in such a beautiful and unique way. So yes, I thought that was interesting, and I had to share it based off of what you just said, Luba. So. Do we have any questions in the chat so far, or we can definitely, if anybody has a question, feel free to raise your hand. We're taking a look. I'm looking at screens here, so I see. I think I saw Nina's. Nina.
Yeah, hi. I just took a shower, so I'm not, camera ready. First of all, I want to say you did a great job on your film. It was very informational. I loved the footage that you had, the archival footage that you cut in with the stories. So it really brought that story to life. And my mother said to me, she watched it twice and she turned me on to it because she said, if you want to know your history, this is a great film. You always ask about your history. So thank you for that. I also wanted to ask a question that maybe other people know, and I just don't know, but my kids, are younger, and I'd like them to see this film, but I know that today is the last day. So is there going to be an opportunity for people to purchase tickets to see it again? I know this is part of a fundraiser, but.
Mm-hmm. So, Julie, do you want to take this question real quickly?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. There's a couple things. One is we do have DVDs, if that's convenient, and everyone will get information about the DVDs via email.
But we are going to try to schedule more virtual screenings. I am looking at a different platform that hopefully will be a little easier to work with. So apologies, and for any tech issues. But yeah, we are going to do that because we had a whole series of live screenings scheduled for the spring and the summer, and as I'm sure you understand, everything was canceled. And so now some of those places are talking about doing a virtual screening, and a couple of them we might hold out to do a live screening. So yes, there will be additional opportunities, and we'll try to keep everybody apprised of that, via email.
Great, thank you so much. And I look forward to more films from you.
Thank you very much.
I hope you do a lot more.
And he's really saying, I don't know if I go through this again, but.
Yes, you're supposed to.
Do you remember that part in the beginning of this where I said, I wasn't sure what I got into? Yeah, no, I do have. So. Yeah, and that's exactly it. And we do now know, and there is, before all this situation happened, there was another movie in the pipeline that has its Ukrainian history involved. So I was very keen on it, and I'm just waiting to get abroad again to really make action. So
good.
But Duży dziękuję. Thank you for that.
Proszę дуже.
Julie, when do you think that your alternate viewing would be available, Bob? Because and I mentioned to you earlier that I had a number of people who couldn't make it on the weekend, and I think that all of us would like to extend this to a broader audience over time.
Yeah, there's two of the organizations that were supposed to be live. I'm in communications with now to try and make a decision about scheduling as a virtual. The thing that I'm not sure of, I'm not really sure that's likely to happen before Christmas, just because even with Thanksgiving and Christmas being so different, I think it's just a time when people get focused on other things. So I'm not positive about that, but January probably at worst. Yeah.
That will be a great opportunity for us to move the film forward.
Yeah, I mean, might try and do one more small one, in December, but I should know in the next week or so.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I don't see anyone's hand up there. I know Ukrainians are not typically a quiet group. Ukrainians and guests, I should say.
Jeannie's iPhone. I see a hand up on Jeannie and Wanda.
Yeah.
Hi, I am not Ukrainian, but I'm actually here because Zina, who's here, we were really good friends, and she passed the link on. And I found the film to be fantastic. It was very informative. I learned a lot about Ukrainian history. And one thing that really stood out to me, I think that she had put that 6 million Jews were killed, and I didn't realize that 1 million of them were Ukrainian. So that was actually really surprising to me. But in all, just really did enjoy it. And I would also say that one other thing that stood out to me is, I don't remember who the person was, but they were talking about that the DP camp was one of their most memorable parts of their childhood. So it was interesting to see that was such a positive place. They could go to school and learn and all of that. So anyway, thank you for the film. Was really great. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. And I think it is a really unique. I like to use the word unique because I just really don't know what other situation you could compare it to. But the fact that such a community could be so strong to create a comfortable living space in such an uncomfortable situation, and be able to really shelter and provide in these really tough times. It is heartbreaking, but it's also beautiful to look back on and to see that that's really something that was lived and overcome and shared, but shared in such a way that was they were able to flourish. Really, they were able to be, like flowers that just opened up and really showed their full beauty, not just as individuals but as a community, and that's really special, I think. And it makes me really proud to say, I'm sure we all feel this way, but it makes me really proud to say that I'm Ukrainian. So
Nice.
yeah, thank you very much, Jeannie.
You're
Appreciate that. Now I know that, Wanda, I saw your hand go up, so I want to make sure you get your chance to speak.
All right. I would like to say I appreciate what you have done, and it was hard work, but you have done very well, and I appreciate. I had a couple of people watching, and they maybe understand now our background, what keeps us together. There are other things that you have touched, how the community in Germany after the war, how they flourished. There were theater, there were PLAS, there was other organizations. But another thing was very important is schooling. Because I went to school when I was 11. That's my beginning of schooling. Same thing was probably with your babcia.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And our parents made sure that we would get at least some kind of education. And I think this would be maybe something, Zina, that we would have to say in your particular thing, how much the parents cared to organize schools. And
absolutely,
we had no books, nothing to write in, no ballpoint pens, nothing. But they did teach us something, and we cherish that.
That
Absolutely.
is one of, if I could just add to what Pani Wanda said, that to me is one of the most inspirational parts of the DP camps. Here were people who had been through war, they'd been through genocide, they'd been through so much, repression and terror. And after the war, they were in these camps, and like Dr. Motil said, that they were able to, I guess, steep in their Ukrainianness, but also educate their children. And one of the stories that has always stood out to me about my grandparents is in the DP camp, they sold their bed and slept on the floor so they could buy my mother an accordion, because a young lady should know how to play an instrument. And I think that spirit was very prominent in the DP camp.
Yeah, very much so. And that's absolutely true. And my babcia was in the exact same boat with schooling. And I remember her speaking so much about, learning so much about everything. I mean, math and medicine and this and that, and how she had to walk to a completely different part of a city. It almost seemed as though she was walking to a complete different city just to go to school and come back. And I was like, wait, hold on, you could walk? I'm so confused. I mean, me as a child, I was thinking this was something way different than really what it was. But it's very enriching and it makes me so proud, really, like I said, to know that there was such sheltering, such care that was taken. And similarly, I wish I could really speak to all of the stories, all of the words that were shared from all the different individual interviews, because there were so many beautiful and amazing stories that it'll be in part 2. That's what's going to happen. So.
Still, my question was very interesting about sukhariki, the bag full of sukhariki to eat.
Oh,
that brings a big memory. What happened in my family? How many sukhariki did I eat?
How many?
A lot, and a lot of other things. I know right after the German army occupied Dnipropetrovsk, there were all fields and everything else, kind of all harvest was harvested. and there were cabbage field. All cabbage heads were gone except the lower leaves. My mother and my sister cut a whole bag full of them. And my mother had a whole sack of sukhariki. That's what we had for the whole winter. So mom would reconstitute sukhariki, give us each one, and couple leaves of cabbage that's pretty green and bitter. She would cook it twice. And the second cooking was much sweeter. That brought a lot of memories. Thank you, Matej. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's, I just want to throw out there that I really do want to thank everybody that's here for being here tonight, because it is, if it wasn't for people like yourselves for watching the film and being interested, then, the film will just be a film. But yeah, it makes it a lot more meaningful from my side, and Julie's side, from our side of this film, to be able to share the stories, but, really be able to speak about them with yourselves. So I just, again, want to thank you guys for being here. And again, appreciate any questions that you guys might have, whether they're related to the film or even the production side of the film, or any facet to this journey, if you will. So do we have any other questions?
Matej, do you speak fluently Ukrainian? Говориш добре по-українськи? Граматику знаєш?
Ні.
Wanda, не пхай.
Ні, перепрошую.
A little bit of a joke here.
Український
Can I say something, please?
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry, I can't raise my hand. This is Luda speaking. And as someone who grew up in Soviet Ukraine, actually, when I came to the United States 30 years ago, I had no idea about this part of Ukrainian history, about DP camps and fleeing the Soviets. And of course, I grew up on the Soviet propaganda, and everybody who lived, or Ukrainians who lived in the Western Ukraine, were depicted as banderivtsi, and those who, enemies of the Soviet state, obviously. So I was discovering a totally new page of Ukrainian history when I came here. And so my in-laws my husband's parents, they went through DPs as children. So I first heard stories from them and was learning about their life in DPs and their escape from the Soviet army and the atrocities that the Soviet army did in Western Ukraine. So I'm glad that that you've created this documentary, because it's important to see all the facets of the Ukrainian history, which is so tragic and so rich. And, many people don't know that in Ukraine, about 5 million civilians died, and I believe it's 1.5 actually, maybe. Some sources say it's 1 million of Ukrainian Jews, and some sources say 1.5 million Ukrainian Jews died. So that's only civilian population, and the number of Ukrainians who were taken to, and you touch on that in your documentary, of the Ukrainians who were who were taken to Germany to work. And my uncle and my aunt were part of that, that forced labor. And my mom told me about her life in occupied Ukraine, in Eastern Ukraine, under Germans, and how hard it was too. And just to see how many struggles Ukrainian people lived through during that period of time, it's invaluable. It's just, thank you so much for this.
Well, дуже дякую to yourself for sharing that, because I know that's not easy to speak about, as well as to learn about sometimes. So thank you, дуже дякую. Yes.
I'd like to add to that. I really appreciate you bringing that up, Luda, because one of the things that we kind of haven't talked about yet was, in the making of this film, we've talked a lot about doing the actual interviews and the people in America that were interviewed, but because my husband and I have worked in Ukraine quite a bit since the breakup of the Soviet Union, we had a number of connections there and ended up bringing in a lot of people from Ukraine to assist with different parts of this. One of the animators, the composer, the sound engineer, the singer, and accessed film archives there that had were previously not available because they were basically being hidden. They weren't available to the public. So some of this is the first time these archives have been used. And your point is really well taken, because many of these people were saying they were very happy to have the opportunity to be involved and wanted the film to be shared more widely in Ukraine, because no one was taught this growing up, going to school, or if they were very young, maybe a very little of it. But yeah, this was not talked about at all. So we just had this really interesting opportunity to kind of bring it full circle in a way.
Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people in Ukraine still don't know that part of history, unbelievably so, but it's true, you know, some people still haven't heard about it. So I think it would be great if you somehow were able to show. I know part of the parts of the film are in Ukrainian, and it would be great if it was maybe dubbed in Ukrainian, or I don't know.
So that it was available to Ukrainians.
Well, it's no longer the case. So
no.
Yeah.
Well, we do have. Yaku, yes, and we do have a. We've actually been working very hard on getting the Ukrainian subtitle files all set up and ready to go. So that's been something that's been cleaned up this past week, actually. Very proud to say that. Not with my Ukrainian, though. So Wanda, don't worry. But yeah, so дуже дякую for that. And yeah, it's as I said with previously in regard to having a bunch of different interviews that still, you know, I'd love to share. We do have some individuals that did share some of their stories about coming from even further east, that would love to share. So as I said, maybe in a part 2 we'll find out. But yes, дуже дякую ще раз. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I have a question. My name is Sophie. I used to be in Adala. Luba, do you remember me?
Sophie Nadala? As in Vicky Nadala's sister?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, we're talking about high school, guys. We don't want to go there. Hello, Sophie.
But anyway, I always denied my Ukrainian heritage. I was just always German. But then in the last many years, I've been trying to get into genealogy and finding out who I am. And this film has been absolutely incredible to really understand why my dad was the way he was. He was an alcoholic, and he ended up in the German army, and I can't even comprehend what he went through as well. And this just makes me learn to forgive him. Very, very powerful, very, very well done. I was just really impressed, and I'm excited to find out more. I can't find anything about his parents through genealogy, but I'm just really encouraged by what I saw and what I felt through your film.
Thank you very much.
Really just understand how powerful that Ukrainian history is, and that's half of me. And for all those years, I denied it.
Wow. I knew there was a reason I liked your sister. Tell her to connect.
I'll do that.
Oh, so nice to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you,
Wow.
Sophie. I really appreciate that. Yeah, wow. I think that needs a moment, really, because it is something super meaningful. Even just hearing it from my side. I mean, The one thing I don't know if you guys know this about me. I didn't really introduce this about myself in the very, very beginning here, but I've always been a competitive figure skater my entire life. That's actually my main thing. That's what I've done since I was very little. And so making movies is not what I do for a living. Maybe it will at this point. I don't know. We'll find out. But I've been a figure skater. I still am a figure skater. I still teach and perform. And one of the things that, bringing this back to what I was just saying, I oftentimes really try to interact with my students, not just telling them what to do, but also teaching them how to learn. And in doing so, I always ask them to just put themselves in my shoes for a second as the coach. What would you do? Where would you go from here? How do you see through my eyes right now? And I just would love to, I know I've said it numerous times already on this this chat with each other, but I would love to just ask you guys, put yourself in my shoes for a second, because it really means a lot to hear everything that you all are saying and to hear all the kind words and the stories. Sometimes it's really hard to just say in words what it really means, because I have had the opportunity to speak with so many amazing people and to have shared in something that, they've never shared with so many people, and to hear their stories be respected, regarded, acknowledged. I don't know really what the best word is. It means a lot more than just a thank you or even just like a wow. It means a lot more than a word can simply define. And I say that from the standpoint of there were a lot of people that I did manage to speak with that I felt really close with afterwards, that I felt like I actually had a new sense of family. People that at times I felt like I could even call them Dido, or say that, they were my grandfather for real. So yeah, there's another little piece of this that I just feel like, I want to thank you guys for being here, because like I said in the beginning, it's almost one of these, if you weren't here, I wouldn't be here. And if I'm not here, I don't know what I'm doing right now. So thank you guys again.
Well, and you raise a very interesting point. As an American-born Ukrainian, there were so many instances where when we asked people about their history, I don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. I'm not Ukrainian. I used to work in a liquor store when I was in college, and it was a great place because it was very ethnic. So I could understand the Poles, the Ukrainians, the Russians coming in. And when I heard that they didn't know how to order whatever they were ordering, I would say in Ukrainian or bad Polish, I can speak with you. Oh, no, I'm American. And what I started learning in the years that I was working there, it kind of put me through college, is that there were so many people who were afraid to open up. There was something, blocking it. And so, Matej, what you were able to do with your interviewees is get these people to open their hearts. And as a result of that, you've become part of them. And that was so special in your video, is that they sat there and they relived it. They didn't block it. And it allowed us to share in their pain and their recovery and their journey from Ukraine through the camps and to the US or Canada, wherever they ended up. So that was, you really nailed it by getting them to open up, and by doing that, becoming what you just said was a special part of them, whether it's a new Didus, a Babusha, a Titka, whatever, because they opened up to you. So that was really special. I was listening to this earlier today, and I was amazed because there were so many people with whom I've tried to speak over the years. Anna, it was nothing. It was okay. It's all done. It's over with. So you really did a marvelous job of getting these folks to open up. And it was one of my questions I was going to ask you is, what was the most difficult part of getting these people to open up? Or did you not have that problem? Certainly not with the people you interviewed. That was kind of always on my mind as I was watching the video.
Actually, that's a really great question. And it's funny because I think personally, I really didn't have that much of a struggle with speaking with anybody. I think, it's funny, and I apologize if this goes a little long, but as I said in the very, very beginning, my babcia told me stories, and I never really understood them, right? I really learned the history of what happened by speaking with everybody. And I had really no shame in asking a question, even if it was totally wrong and not in the chronological order of things. I really had no problems with just asking a question of like, hey, so based off of what you said, this happened then? Now? Like, what's going on? And, even though it's oftentimes is kind of shunned upon within like you're conducting an interview, don't ask questions like that, you should know in advance. Those kinds of questions actually opened up so many doors, because it was like, well, that actually happened here, but actually let me tell you about this other time period and what happened then, and then I'm going to bring it all the way back. And those questions opened up so many doors that in the end, it was just one of those, I'm sitting down at the coffee shop and we just share, and I'm gonna, we just talk to each other. It wasn't, let's sit down and I'm gonna have the camera here and tell me everything about your life. Go, right? It wasn't like that at all. It was so much more of like, we're here and we're family. Like, let's talk it out. Except I'm not family, because I don't want you to think that I'm family, but talk to me like we're family, because But yeah, that was really such a beautiful thing. And as to answer your question, like I said, I never necessarily had that trouble, but the only trouble I had was actually the inverse problem. A lot of times we'd sit there for 4 hours and we didn't have a drink of water or anything. So, and I had to keep changing the batteries in the camera.
But you opened the floodgates.
But that's the amazing thing, because like I said, we have that, and then after everything's all done, family sitting there, just jaw dropped to the floor, just, wow, I've never heard this story before. Whoa. And I remember being in some households where, the tia are running around and people are washing the dishes, and I'm just sitting there and speaking, and then all the activity slowly dies down, and instead it becomes like the round, around the fireplace, or around the campfire discussion, and then just listening to the stories. And it's amazing how it can make you think, make you slow down and take a second. So
thank you.
Yeah,
God has given you a gift to provide healing for the people you talked with, the families, and for myself and many others. Incredible.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
I think Wanda, I saw your hand up, Wanda, first, yeah. and then Nina.
I would like to make a couple comments in all the life that I have in the United States, close to 70 years now. I have met different situations. Some people would like to hear your story. That means my story. And some people are completely not interested. And they would rather talk about sports and what kind of dress people have, what did they have for lunch, instead of history, world history. And I am kind of concerned because young people should know past, should know different countries in Europe, how did they survive the wars, and how to protect even this country from next war. They should know history. And I don't know if the history is actually one of the big subjects in schools. So my question is, some people told me, oh, you have a chip on your shoulders. I don't want to hear that. Matej, you have done a good job because you pumped good information from people. You had better luck than I did.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
To zvonit. Nina, you had a question. Thank you, Wanda.
I don't know. I kind of want to piggyback on a previous thing about, you know, heritage, right? I think it's really important for my family and my dad to teach us about our heritage, because he never wanted us to feel like second-class citizens, you know, where, you know, a lot of immigrants would come through Ellis Island, change their last names. And luckily, my great-grandfather knew a lot of languages. He made sure I got the KYJ ending on the last name.
Me too.
Right? I see. Because they wanted us to know we were Ukrainian, right? So I remember my dad shouting at me when I was playing soccer across the field in a town where no one spoke any other language but English, you know, and I was always embarrassed as a kid, but now I feel so proud, you know. And the other thing I was going to say is what I liked about your film is that it does show the beauty and it shows the ugliness, and why it's so important for us to know our history is because we don't want to repeat the things that are awful, right? And we want to take what's beautiful, like how people can rebuild, even, you know, after such a disastrous thing that happened in their history. So, you know, it shows both, you know, but it is so important also, like Wanda says, to know our history, to know where our roots, where we come from, because that's who we are as people. And I really think it's great, Matej, that you made this film as a result of someone questioning your paper and who you were writing about. And my father, when he came to New York City, his teacher said to him that Ukraine didn't exist. So all I know is he's read books nonstop since that time, you know, because he said, well, what am I, a figment of your imagination? You know, it was such an awful thing to hear. So it resonates with me.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I don't get that. I don't get that whole thing. But Ukraine is there. It's on the map. I don't know. But
everybody's always wanted to invade our country because it's a rich country. It was the breadbasket of Europe. It was, you know, we have the port city, so all the riches came into Ukraine. And that's why throughout the centuries, all different countries have been trying to infiltrate it and take it over. So.
Well, duży dziękuję for everybody's comments and compliments. And Lily, I think I see your hand up there. Proszę.
Hello, thank you. I really enjoyed your, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I really enjoyed your documentary and it was really spot on. Just wanted to share as a kid growing up, having obeeds after Satkwa at my grandmother's house on Sundays, and adults getting together and talking about Ukraine and the life they had and the Holod and coming to America, immigracja and all that. And I just took it for granted as a kid. And I'm like, what are they talking about? You know, kind of thing. Until I went to college and understood what the famine was all about. And it enlightened me to what my family and other families had gone through to preserve their heritage, their culture, their religion, and how it's so rich and beautiful and wonderful. And as an adult, I've been embracing it. I remember, kind of segueing, but as a child, always having to correct people saying that I was not Russian, because Ukrainian was known as Russia for so long, and having to always correct people on that. I found that very frustrating, and I'm very excited to see that there's just more information coming out and people understand that Ukraine is not Russian, that we are our own entity in our own Ukraine, with own country with our cultures and traditions. And with Zina prodding me, and then I had the opportunity going through many pictures of my family back in the DP camps and everything. And it's just, every family has a story like that. And it's beautiful, and we have to share it and hang on to it. And because it's part of us, it's who we are. And it's just a it's just very special. And growing up, trying to meld the American culture and Ukrainian culture was somewhat challenging during the 60s, and then all that turmoil that was going on at that time as well. But they persevered. Our parents, they came to this country to bring this cultural and tradition and bring their children up in it, and they've done a wonderful job with it. And I'm very proud that I'm a Ukrainian person, and I want everybody to know and thank you for this documentary. It's just been, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I thank you guys so much. So thank you very much for being here, everybody.
Anyone else coming up with any questions? We've reached a little over our hour, but we're certainly willing to extend it if there are any other questions you'd like to pose for Matej. Otherwise, we'd wrap it up. So please, it's open. We're not rushing you. Grab a glass of wine. Михайло, добрий вечір. Ти маєш щось сказати? Будь ласка.
I really like the movie, and it, in a very concise and short way, to demonstrate a couple of things that are still very not much known in Ukraine and being speculated on by different propagandas. But interesting in this movie was to see how in the refugee camps, when Ukrainians are not being politicized, not being dragged one way or the other, they actually flourish, and the culture thrives, and you know, in a very short time. So that made me think that maybe if it was spread faster and actually back there in Ukraine, it would put end to a lot of speculations on West versus East. Some Ukrainians serve Nazis, and so the other ones have to pay them. And all of those are, it's clear to me where the source of this information is coming from. And I think if the movie is shown there, it'll clearly demonstrate that, like, look, if we were in that environment, that we're not really polarized, we're not really sterile from all the influences from not so friendly friends, then this is what we could be. The dancing polkas, reciting, singing songs, reading Shevchenko, and just focus on improving our culture, a very rich culture. So the question is all of that. What are your plans to promote this video in Ukraine? Make it widely available.
So
I understand that there's some financial aspects.
So we've done as you might have heard in the beginning, we have done a screening in Ukraine as it stands, and it is definitely on the list of places that we are really looking to expand more into. We have really, with the help of everybody that has participated in this film, who is located, resides, lives and breathes the air of Ukraine, with their assistance, we're really looking to expand ourselves there much more. It's really, I hate saying this, but COVID's kind of played a little bit of a role in slowing us down in that venture. But my goal really with this film is to branch it out as far and wide as we really can. Really share it amongst the people that it resonates with, and ideally through that we kind of continue to keep the web expanding and build up more and more of that understanding and love and compassion and that understanding of history that comes with it. And I really appreciate what you're saying, Mikhailo, because I do believe that it can bring everybody under the same sort of umbrella and save understanding and kind of bring our communities a bit more together, because we know that there is sometimes a little bit of the differentiation that happens, but really there's so much to be understood and shared between us, and we are all one, and I think that's really is what makes us really special, culturally extremely unique. To understand how vast and wide culturally we are as Ukrainians. There's so much variety in our cultures throughout the different areas of Ukraine, and that's something that I feel like we really need to cherish and bring down to the fire of what it means to be Ukrainian. So yeah, дуже дякую, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it is in the scopes. It's in the vision. It's out there, right in the distance. We just kind of have to grab it past COVID here. So we're in communications with as many people as we can, and we are trying to get the film into Ukraine a lot more. So.
And thank you very much for letting your film used to be a fundraiser for the project. It's wonderful that you are supporting our community's effort. Thank you very much for that.
No, thank you guys. I appreciate being able to connect it up all together and share all as one. So thank you.
And try to reach out to Ukrainian Ministry of Culture for supporting your projects, because I believe that they should be interested in what you're doing.
If you have a connection, that would be, we can definitely make sure that we're in communications via email, and we'd be happy to continue this conversation, after this Q&A and everything. So I appreciate that.
I was going to say, I'm definitely open to any suggestions you have in that regard. One thing Matej said is very true. I mean, the COVID situation really kind of changed the whole focus of where we were at, because we were focused on community screenings, live screenings, and doing that, through the year, and had some preliminary conversations about a similar approach in Ukraine, and really just had to kind of take a step back and look at other ways to start getting the film out. And this is part of it. So yeah, definitely open to any thoughts and suggestions you have.
Any other questions? We're a little bit over time, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't take any other questions. We're happy to.
Are we going to have a copy of this in our University of Minnesota library?
No, I don't know. Talk to the archivists.
Yeah,
we've project underway. We have to talk to Matej and to Julie.
We have actually emailed a number of university libraries with the information about the DVDs and so forth. The difficulty is that a lot of universities only purchase through catalogs. So we need to get someone to actually pay attention to it. So follow-up phone calls are kind of the next step. And it's a similar thing. If you happen to know somebody there that knows somebody, mention it, pass on the email, it all helps.
And I wanted to add that Matej did send a DVD, which will be donated, thank you, to one of our church libraries so that the community can use it here.
Any other questions? No, if not, I'm going to try to wrap it up. Unless, there's, you got to run in and ask the last question if you can. Okay? Going on. As we wrap up this evening, I wanted to share with you a few thoughts shared by the narrator of this film, Alexander Matej. In a May interview with the Kyiv Post, he stated, "I've become a real believer in the importance of memoirs, eyewitness accounts, as supplements to archival historical work." He further stated that some Ukrainians lack extensive memoir literature, especially ordinary folk, and unsurprisingly, when it comes to their history, non-Ukrainian voices tend to define it rather than Ukrainian voices. And that's really important. He saw the film Babee Skazala as one way to provide Ukrainians with a greater historical voice and correcting this imbalance. His encouragement to write memoirs reminiscing is exactly the focus of our Minnesota Holodomor project. We continue to gather oral history and memoirs, working with our elderly community who can still recollect their experiences and capture those memories and fold this into a powerful Minnesota-oriented documentary. We look forward to working with our Minnesota community to make this documentary a reality and to share with the world our less known critical chapters in Ukraine's and our Minnesota diaspora history. So I want to thank you on behalf of all of us for your support this weekend. And in advance, I thank you for your continued financial and moral support, because without your support, to use a bad grammar, it just ain't gonna happen. My grammar teacher would be rolling in his grave by now. As we work to expand our social media presence, we will keep you up to date on our progress and how you can help. We're going to be looking for more photos, video images for inclusion into the project. But at this time, and thank you for all of your wonderful questions, I want a special thanks to Director Matej for sharing with us just a few snippets of his long journey and the evolution of this project, a truly memorable and important film for all of us. On behalf of the Minnesota community, Matej, we wish you continued success in your new projects, and we look forward to welcome you back in our community face to face once we get past this darn pandemic. Thank you all. Thank you, dear Matej. Thank you, Julie, and all of you for your participation and your great questions. Thank you, and have a good evening. God bless.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. And with that, we're going to end it here. So thank you so much.
Good night. Stay safe, healthy, and go have a glass of wine or a cognac or
All right. Дуже дякую.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.